Okay. I'm going to call the BUHS number 6 meeting to order for today, May 20th at 6:03 p.m. And we're going to, I'm looking for a motion to go into an executive session in accordance with VSA Title I 3137, the academic records or suspension or discipline of a student.
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded? And we'll be joined by the middle school administration for that meeting. All in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstentions? None? All right, we are adjourned. So I'm going to go ahead and dissolve executive session at 6:47. And is there a motion?
I move that we accept the recommendation of administration in the student matter just reviewed.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Okay. Excellent. All right. So we're moving on, and now on our agenda is public information meeting related to the FY20 budget for BUHS number 6 and the recreation field capital improvements. And just a reminder, and to let everybody know at home, we have an annual meeting scheduled to let the public vote on these two items, scheduled for June 12th, which is a Wednesday at 7 p.m. in the high school gym. So 7 p.m. in the high school gym on June 12th is the schedule for the public to vote on these two items.
Is that meeting contingent upon what happens between now and then, or is that meeting?
I think at least half of the agenda items on our meeting on June 12th needs to happen anyway.
Okay.
And the discussion that we've had as a board has been to let BUHS number 6 voters vote on our budget, even though it looks as though, we'll talk more about it later, it looks as though our budget is just getting merged with all the other budgets for the unified district budget anyway. But, so, Frank?
What time is that again?
7 o'clock on the 12th. And that actually, June 12th will be the last time as a group BUHS number 6 board will be together. Because we only have one more meeting after this, and then June 12th is the annual meeting. But we typically don't do a second meeting in June because it usually falls around graduation and all the other things that are going on related to that, and that would be the week of graduation and moving up ceremonies that we did the third Monday in June. So the June 12th would be the last time as a board we would be collectively together.
So this is the last time we meet
No.
without the public?
No, June
Not June.
3rd. June 3rd we have
Oh,
public.
June 3rd,
Yeah.
thank you.
We have one more
Yeah,
regular
yeah.
meeting, and then June 12th would be the annual meeting,
Yep,
which would be the last time we're together.
No meeting on June 17th.
No scheduled meeting on June 17th. As always, between the 12th and the end of June, if the administration needed something to pull us together, we could be put together for it. But okay. So this is the information session on our proposed budget and recreational field capital improvements. Do we want to tackle the budget part first? I'm looking towards Bob and Frank here. So let's go ahead and tackle the budget part first, and I'll turn it over to the two of you.
Let me do an overview and then you can fill in the good other parts that I missed perhaps.
Okay.
This is, the budget has not changed from the most recent iteration which we approved as a board to pass along. And the FY20 budget is $25,221,000, which involves a 2.6% increase over the prior year. And that's overall, including the district-wide, which are the items that are across all the schools, such as maintenance and band and so forth, senior high, BAMS, and the Career Center, and the Career Center tuition that's paid by the high school. So just really quickly going through the individual units, our subtotal district-wide budget is just about level, up just $6,476. A good share of this is maintenance, plant operations. It's a pretty big facility. a lot of money goes there. So that's basically level. In the senior high, there is one position. The Dean of Students has been reestablished. For a while, we've had two second-in-command administrators. There's been an awful lot of time involved in referrals and working with students, and we need to reestablish that position, Dean of Students. And then we also have put in the budget for a clinician, full-time, right?
Yeah, the clinician was hired this year though.
Yep, but it was new.
It's new, right, so it's
Funded
Yeah.
for the first time
Funded
this
for the
year.
first-
and sustained.
And this is somewhat offset by Medicaid
Yeah.
funding, I believe. Okay, so the high school, and the tuition is included to WRCC in that. The high school is up 5.4%. Those additions that I spoke of, but primarily health insurance and contract salary increases are driving that number. BAMS, we are adding a 1.0 full-time equivalent academic support. There are many of the students at BAMS that need extra work and help, and we need to add some help for them. And we also are buying some Chromebooks. Other than that, programs are the same, and BAMS will be up 5.6%, as I said. The Career Center is basically level funded, no major changes over there in terms of adding or subtracting programs, and the change there is 0.6%. That's up $15,000, so basically level. You put it all together, 2.6% increase, and the lion's share of that is health insurance, which is going up about 10%. Is that 10% still a good number?
Approximately,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and our negotiated contract salaries for staff. And I think that's the basics. I will kind of talk a little bit about the capital budget. We maintain a 5 or 6 year capital plan, and capital expenditures for FY 2020. We have budgeted for $350,000, which includes some HVAC items for the new, what's now not the new project anymore, but 2004 or 5 that came on stream, so we're 12 or 15 years into it, and as expected, there will be some expenditures made there. We have also put in some money for a small amount for roofing, and BAMS, there's $65,000 at BAMS for flooring to be replaced, and that's kind of an ongoing. Flooring and roofing are almost every year, along with painting. And then $125,000 for first of a several year loan for Natowich Field turf improvement, and I will talk to that when that one comes up. That's the second issue that will be brought to that meeting. So basically level service, couple of changes and additions, and there are some other moving around a little bit of responsibilities, but basically we're providing the same services, and we're anticipating that our student population is pretty much going to be level now at this point.
Any questions or thoughts about that? It's all stuff we've seen before multiple times, so that's the budget portion, and there's no public here to ask questions, so that's the budget portion. The next portion is recreational field capital improvements. And again, for the meeting on the 12th, we've asked Robert Clark, the Finance Committee has asked Robert Clark and Chris Sawyer to put together sort of some things that it looks like Bob's gonna spell out to everybody as far as like a timeline and some explanation about why we've come to the decision we've come to and the recommendations we've come to.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah. Oh, you have it. I didn't think it was gonna be ready. Excellent.
this
So,
is a draft, I'd like to share it.
okay.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to talk a
Yeah.
little bit about it.
Yeah, totally.
So one of the questions that Mr. Davidson and others asked us was, why are we talking about a turf field now? Why in 2019 are we talking about it? And we kind of put our heads together and looked through some old files. And this has actually been something that we've been talking and thinking about since 2002. So it's been a while. And it's ironic that Mr. Sawyer can't be here tonight because he's actually at a game that's being played on a turf field because the natural surface field is unsuitable for play. So they're actually doing it on a turf field. So it's kind of ironic that he's not here for that reason. So a couple of things that we noticed is that in 2002, we talked with Stevens and Associates for the first time as part of the project to do a turf feasibility analysis. And then in 2007, my predecessor, Jim Day, sent a memo to this board saying that we really needed to improve field access and we also needed to ensure quality of program use. And so we had a conversation since then. The reason we're looking at a synthetic field is because right now, given where we are with our maintenance, a natural field can really be used about 100 to 200 hours a year, and we're well in excess of that with our field right now. And replacing that with natural turf would certainly help us use the field more often. It would help us play earlier in the spring. It would help us stack practices temporarily, so we could have a practice at 3, at 5, at 7, so we could actually have 3 practices in any given day. Currently in the fall, we can really only use that field for football and nothing else because of the high damage. It's also currently not suitable for soccer because it's not lined correctly. And but now we're ready to do that because in the past years, what we've done is we've actually removed the old grandstands and removed the footers. I believe last year, Robert. The footers for the old grandstand in 2017.
I think that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. We put in the new press box. We put in the new track. We've actually done the track. We actually researched the track last year. So we've done a lot of the work leading up to this to make Natterwich Field kind of our centerpiece. Along the way, we've spruced up the Colonel's Den. We've made that consistent with fire and safety code as well. So we're ready at this point to upgrade the field itself. And this seems to be the time. We've spent a lot of time getting ready for it. We've spent a lot of time justifying it. You can see some of these bullet points down below. Some of the reasons, we've talked about a lot of these previously. We've talked about field hockey. We've talked about not having a portion of their field or the soccer field being dirt, that we want to have one consistent surface. We've talked about how we would be able to play more sports more often on those fields. We've added, since Natterwich Field was built, we've added several boys and girls sports. This year we added ultimate frisbee as a varsity sport. One of the things that we were acutely aware of this spring is that our fields were late getting ready, and a turf field, after the long winter, a turf field can be prepared much earlier. Also out there is the use of the Baybeck fields, which are great fields, and we're very grateful to have those for $1 a year. But at this point, they're on the market. It could be sold. It's also a remote location, and we'd like to have our people closer. There's very limited parking up there as well, and so there's a lot of reasons why we'd want to actually do this. There's obviously some use in the summertime. We would save a lot of maintenance costs. We save a lot of time where that wasn't being used at all. Community teams also use it, not just school teams. And our groundskeepers have done a great job, don't get me wrong, and they continue to do a great job. But at this point, if we want to keep expanding our sports programs, we want to make sure that we're having equal access for all of our programs. It's time at this point to look at the turf field as a possibility for this year. Robert, you have anything to add?
Well, I read that over before, that was pretty complete.
Okay.
I mean, we could drill down to real details if we want to. I don't think anybody wants to go there, though.
I haven't read this yet, but you hit on all the main points of where we are right now. I just might add a little further historical perspective. The world didn't start in 2002. In 1967, when yours truly was here, just to give you a perspective, the facilities were basically the same as we have now, except that Sawyer Field was yet to be built and we didn't have Famulari. Other than that, we had pretty much the same. The BUHS campus is shoehorned into a residential area between residential and the town yard and the town sand pit. There's not really any space to push out. And the Famulari use of that has been great. Sawyer Field is primarily, if I'm not mistaken, just softball.
Pretty much.
It's only really set up for that.
It's like a practicing in the morning.
And we've also lost a little turf, no, I shouldn't use the word turf. We've lost a little space when the project happened and the tennis courts were relocated from out front here to over where they are. It took up some of what was practice area. So our footprint overall is really tight. And in 1967, and I think my memory serves me correctly, I know for sure there was no lacrosse. There was very little middle school athletics. I don't believe there was field hockey even at that time. There was not ultimate frisbee. And there was not anywhere near as much public use for the various facilities we have here, which do see a fair amount of public participation. And so that's a lot of change in middle school and phys ed classes. They had phys ed classes, but it was difficult to find a place for them all the time. So you can see that the footprint has not expanded really, other than Sawyer Field, but the amount of use has expanded dramatically over the last 50 years or so. And that's my perspective of it. And actually looking at a diagram of a map of the facility, you can really see how we're right in there, filling up every corner of space that we have. And so all these improvements are geared towards the final piece of I think of the whole big project, which we value engineered away early on. There's too many things to consider, and it just kept going on another year and another year, and we've talked about it in finance off and on, and now is the time. It's a good time. We have a few years before we get into larger capital expenditures related to the age of the facility. So now would be the time we feel to do it, and the approach, and I'll let Frank, if he would, just briefly go over the financing approach that's suggested.
Sure.
Yep.
Yes, so we had a range of estimated costs between a little under $1 million and up to 1.2 million, I believe. And of course, this is not a bid documented estimate. It's just a market rate that has been reviewed. So with that in mind, and as Woody has mentioned, in the capital plan we had resources set aside for the field improvements, and at one time it was either the grass turf that needs to be renewed or replaced with synthetic. So we had contemplated a loan of $750,000 for getting the initial purchase underway, and then using the balance of reserve funds to carry the cost of the project. As you may recall, we have that in reserve. We have that balance in reserve, and then we have an additional $2.3 million in a general education reserve that is available at the board's discretion. So you do have sufficient resources without borrowing, but we thought it was prudent to match some of the useful life with an amortization schedule, which is what is typical for longer-term projects. However, we also thought that it would be helpful to do a 5-year note as opposed to a long-term note. I've reached out to bond counsel about the statute. There's a statute that specifically provides a forum to approve borrowing at a special meeting of the district. And that is for projects with a borrowing term of 5 years or less. I missed your last meeting, but I believe you approved a warning for that. Does that
Yes.
sound familiar? So that's Article 2. And that is the second article for the June 12th public meeting. First article is the budget. We believe the tax impact, the cost of the project is built into the FY20 budget that has been reviewed. We did have an estimated tax impact of a little less than 1%, given what we knew at the time of building the budget. The legislature is still in session, and they are still contemplating the yield and some of the other funding formula statistics, but we believe that this is kind of a neutral impact on the school tax rate.
Okay. Are there any questions? Ready, Rick?
Discussion for public.
Yeah.
Let's just say the Second Amendment passes. When will the field be ready for play? As far as, so when would construction start? Would they be able to play football? I mean, I think that the public would want to know when the project would be completed and the field being used.
Well, that's hard to say without actually being out there bidding, because you're competing against other schools that have already approved their projects. So I would say a fair timeline would be, obviously this could not happen this year, they're all booked up. So we're looking at next
2021.
year's timeline, yeah, and then after 4 weeks, it's done, we go play. It's not like when you put natural turf in, you gotta wait a year.
And I think that kind of gets you.
That's being, I'm giving it more time, they say 3, I always give it more time.
Right. I think to answer your question too, Rick, I think in one of the meetings that we had at Finance and we talked about this, it was because if this gets approved June 12th, the budget actually doesn't go into effect till July 1st to do that. So then bids would go out, that kind of stuff. And the plan would tentatively be that after graduation in 20 to break ground, get this work done over the summer so that by fall of 20,
Yeah.
fall of 20,
It would actually, I
they'd
think,
be able to use it.
if you get a really good rate, being that far ahead and having it secured, and then going into it, because they're booking out for the next year,
Yep.
puts us in a real good negotiating position.
Right. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think, again, just when it comes time to negotiate, I think that a time frame would be part of the language.
'Cause, well, we were doing some informal, of course, with some companies, and how far ahead you book does affect the price. And the longer out, and the more time you give them, so they can secure that, and they know you're all set, you get a better price.
Unless somebody else falls down.
Right.
I mean, there's always unforeseen things
Right.
that could happen, yeah, there's a lot of what ifs. But that was one thing I did take away from the table, that I noticed that the longer the time frame, the more notice, that it seemed to be a better bargaining position.
Okay.
Same thing with the track, that's kind of where I learned it from.
Other thoughts, questions, concerns?
I was just kind of curious, when would the note actually be taken out? If it is approved on the 12th, but we wouldn't anticipate starting the project until the following year.
Yeah, it would be certainly after construction's complete.
Oh, I
It's a
see.
pretty short turnaround for for securing the note. And again, unlike a bond where you gotta go through an application process, and bond sales are usually every July. So oftentimes you do have to borrow either earlier or you have to have some sort of an interim financing. This one is bid process, award, they construct, project's done, we borrow and
Oh, I see.
pay at that point.
So we might not even borrow for a year.
Right,
A year and a half.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Anything else? Questions? So I'm seeing none, I guess. So on June 3rd, we'll have a second public information session as part of our board meeting on June 3rd, and that is two things. One, because we need to have two public information chances to hear this, but also we need to do one within so many days of the actual election, so that June 3rd covers us for that. And then on June 12th, we will have our annual meeting with the two articles. One is the budget and one is the improvements to the field.
Thank you for a good.
Yeah, this is
That is Mr. Sawyer's work, so.
excellent.
Yeah, I will pass that along to him.
Great. Anything else related to the public meeting? Seeing none? Okay, so let's move into clerk's report and approval of the minutes of May 6th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded? All right. Any additions, deletions, or corrections that need to be made to those minutes? Anyone saw? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstentions? None. All right, does any board members have any other communications that they want to share with the group this evening that they've received? Okay, seeing none. All right, so we're done with clerk's report. Thanks. We approved the minutes. There's nothing else to approve. So is there a motion to enter consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So let's start with finance, building, and transportation.
Okay, the Finance Committee met on May 14th, and we approved some consent agenda warrants, numbers 1214 through 1218, 1220 through 1222, and 1223 through 1230, dated May 6, in the total amount of $1,028,552.47. We also approved payrolls from April 12th in the amount of $514,251.36, and April 26th in the amount of $519,519.57. The two main topics for that meeting, in addition to warrant and payroll approvals, were first off, the timeline for public engagement in the turf field proposal, and we've just gone over that. And we spent some time coming up with what to say and when to say it. And we also had a report from Phil George, Edward Jones, regarding his part of the endowment fund review. As I mentioned last time, we had Wells Fargo advisors. The two of them each have approximately 50% of the Eames fund. And it was interesting to get a report from two different financial advisors. The results were very similar. With the case of, I reported on the Wells Fargo the other day. In the case of Edward Jones, Phil George, same basic performance. Year 2018 was not a great year. However, we didn't drop as far as the other major indices. The two of them were about the same. And for 2019, there is a nice return. And again, they are quite close to each other in terms of how they're performing. So it's nice to have two different ones, but both performing well. And Phil recommended that we stay the course with how we've got our investment set up for the time being, because it seems to be working pretty well. So the remaining endowment is the general endowment that includes a whole lot of scholarship funds and so forth that People's United Bank has, and we will be hearing from them at some point.
Probably our June meeting.
in a June meeting. We'll be hearing from them how we're doing with that. So that's the basic work of the Finance Committee.
Great, thank you.
Oh, next meeting, we do have a next meeting scheduled.
June 5th,
June 5th at 8 o'clock, central office.
it's Wednesday.
A Wednesday instead of a Thursday, yeah.
Excellent, okay.
Rick, I got a question as far
Yep.
as the finance committee meeting after the 12th, will that occur or not? Is that similar to the board, or?
There isn't a finance committee scheduled after the 12th.
Right, our next one is June 5th,
And
and
that'll be the last one of those?
That would be the last one, yeah, in theory, yep,
Okay.
unless something unforeseen happens.
Thank you.
Yep,
And we don't have any warrants or payrolls to approve?
he read through them,
Wait, okay.
yep. The ones,
Well, maybe just one other clarification on that. So, if the merger goes through as expected, all the districts will still be active from the point of view of essentially closing the books and reviewing the final audit. So I would think that the finance committee would meet, a couple of times, probably in September, October, as we wrap things up, because there's a fair amount of accruals and business to clear that relates to the June 30th period. But for operating a school, that obligation ends when the merger becomes operational.
And those discussions will be presented to the new board, or they'll just take place, or?
If it's related to closing the books of the June 30 entity, then it would be for that board, the current board, this board.
The members of the finance committee
Yeah.
will still
Yeah.
continue on.
I would anticipate that, yeah.
okay.
So this
Would the
board is
full board
not
then have to approve
officially.
as well, or would we assign?
I'm not sure, I would
I guess that's what I'm talking about.
I assume they would, yeah. We haven't done this before, so we'll ask some more questions, but that's my understanding, is that the current board's responsibility for operating a school ends when the new entity becomes operational. But for purposes of closing business as of June 30th, the law provides up until December of 2019 to address anything that may come up.
When you say present to the board, you're talking about this board, or you're talking about? the
This
new-
board.
new
This-
board?
this
So
board.
how can we approve anything if our last board meeting is on the 12th?
Well, that's what I'm clarifying.
So it might not be.
It might not be.
So we shouldn't leave the country until December, is what you're saying?
We'll check the, what is expected, because there are several districts that have merged, and there is some precedent, not in our region, but in others, so we'll find out what's typical. Because I think technically your terms go right till next March, right? Or I guess the state law says next March, if the merger doesn't go through, but if it does, until December.
I just recommend to kind of nail that down. If meetings need to be warned in order to approve
Yeah.
finance committee decisions, it's,
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Good to get the plan defined. Yeah.
I mean, unless we do like the summer type of things where we authorize a committee to take action.
yeah, we'll have to figure out what we can do, because this is news to me.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that as of June 30th, this group and this entity ceased all existence, and that I sort of assumed, and I'm finding out incorrectly, that, yes, the closure of the books would still need to happen, but I just assumed that the new board or the new board's finance committee would go through that.
Yeah,
We'll get clarification on that. All right, so back to consent agenda, WSESU finance.
Okay, we meet, the finance committee meets this Thursday, the 23rd at 5:30 in this room. A fairly limited agenda. We've got to find a clerk. I'm not sure how long the committee goes on, but anyways, Minutes, warrants, payrolls, and then an agenda item on the finance committee structure post-merger, so that may be interesting. And then the full SU board meets at 6 o'clock, again in this room, with a full agenda with policies and warrants and personnel updates, and other things, their child nutrition programs, summer hiring, and those things. I don't know if there's anything else going on Thursday for the full
No,
board meeting.
that sounds right.
And so, and you're, and then our third member, voting member for the SU.
Katie.
I'm sorry?
Katie.
Kate, she's said in the past that she'll be there.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, planning and policy.
Has not met.
All right, teacher curriculum committee.
We're meeting right after this meeting.
BAMS committee.
Has not met.
WRCC.
Has not met.
Right, anything else for consent agenda? Okay, is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, none. Order approved. Okay, let's go with administrative reports. Let's start with the Career Center.
Sure. A few things in the last couple of weeks. On May 10th, our forestry students, Tyler Jobin, Nick Aiken, and Michael Young, 3 of the students competed at the Northeast Woodlands competition at Vermont Technical College in Randolph. Although the students didn't place in the top 3, there were only 3, we had about 15 schools, 15 of the 17 career centers in both the state of Vermont competing. The kids thoroughly enjoyed the experience and had a good day meeting students that felt the same about their career path, discussing it with them. So that was a good activity, even though it was a little cold and damp a couple of Fridays ago. And our LNA classroom has been approved by the Red Cross as a testing site, which means that our kids will not have to travel to an outside site to take their licensing exam this year. So that will happen at the Career Center. And also on May 14th and 15th, the LNA students went down to VTC's simulation lab in downtown Brattleboro to observe both normal and complicated birth scenarios using computerized mannequin. So what happens in a normal birth, what happens when there are other things happen, umbilical cord first, breech baby, shoulder obstructions. So it was great for those students to actually witness it, what happens. And of course, some of those students are witnessing some of those things during their clinicals they get involved in. So it's been a good experience. And this week, our students in all of our level 2 programs are presenting capstone projects. These projects involve both a written and a presentation piece. This is the first year that our students have been required to do this. And although nervous, they've done a great job starting today. We've invited parents in, and almost all of the parents of the students that were presenting today were there at the Career Center. I was up in the tip. We had forestry and automotive today, business, filmmaking, electronics tomorrow, manufacturing, construction the following day, Wednesday. So it's on days that happening. So it's been great, especially these kids that haven't had a chance to do it before, both the written and standing up before a crowd, and being evaluated. Everyone in the audience evaluated them on our rubric that we have set, gave it to the instructor to use as their final grade for that. The instructor will be grading them finally, but giving the feedback. And last month, the state of Vermont made available 4 competitive requests for proposals for CTE centers in advanced manufacturing and cybersecurity. I'm pleased to report that the WRCC has written a proposal for both, and we were notified last Tuesday that we're actually selected for both. So a grant of $50,000 will be used to upgrade our manufacturing lab, and $25,000 will be used to purchase equipment and begin a cybersecurity program at our center. Questions?
That's great news. That sounds exciting. New stuff.
It is. It is. Wish I was around for it. I knew it was going to start.
Good try,
Thank you.
Steve. Good try, Steve. All right, let's just move down the table to the high school.
Sure. So we're in that point where we're getting ready to move into graduation mode, and we're enjoying the calm before the storm, as it were. This Thursday, the music department is presenting their final concert of the school year, the annual Pops concert at 7 o'clock in the BUHS auditorium. That features our concert band, jazz workshop, madrigals, and our chorus. And they've done a great job all year long. And this is a great chance to see the culmination of the students' works and the teachers' works as well. Both Steve and Elise, as you know, do incredible work with our kids. Our music program is stellar. The end of year schedule, I'm going to just pass this around for your consumption. We're looking at a whole slate of events. Obviously, independent studies are due for next year. Tuesday, June 4th, we're doing our underclass awards ceremony. We generally do that during the school day. This year, we're trying it at nights, and parents have expressed that they'd like to attend, so we're going to do that underclass awards at 6:30 in the BUHS auditorium. We're concluding regular classes on June 14th. This, of course, is barring anything happening that we don't like. June 16th, we'll have baccalaureate. That will be in the BUHS courtyard. That's a great time for seniors and their families to come and kind of reflect on their 4 years. While baccalaureate does have some roots in church services, this is not a church service. It's very much a secular service. Members of the class and teachers will perform songs, poems, readings, things of that nature. Monday and Tuesday, the 6th, 17th, and 18th, will be final exams. There's a detailed schedule that students are getting tomorrow. And then Thursday is senior awards night, 7 o'clock here at BUHS in the auditorium. And then Friday, 6:30, under the sunny skies on Nat Field, will be graduation for the class of 2019. So we're pretty excited. We also recently found the students who were selected for the Experiment for International Learning travel abroad this summer. And the list of countries that they're going to, our students are traveling to this summer, is staggering. We're going places like Botswana, Mongolia, India, Ecuador, Costa Rica, France, Japan, China, Jordan, and Spain. And so our students are taking great advantage. Those are all the Experiment for International Learning Summer Program. We have students every year apply for that. It's a great program and a great partnership, so we're excited for that. Along those same lines, Suzanne Grenoble, our French teacher, is actually looking with our Swiss partners in Geneva to work out a longer-term exchange program, initially for students from Switzerland to come over here for a semester, and then perhaps have our students go over to Switzerland for a semester, kind of forging that connection with our school a little bit deeper. Down the road, we could do a teacher exchange, but for now, we're going to start small. And actually, there's a 1% proposal that we'll talk about that does some of this work. Finally, I am not pleased, but to report that Assistant Principal Mary Kaufman will be resigning at the conclusion of this school year. Mary has taken a position at another school, and we wish her well. She has done incredible work for us in her 2 years here. She came in with a great perspective as a K-6 teacher who could really speak well about how kids learn when they're younger, and she helped our teachers apply that to their practice with high school students. Mary will be sorely missed by all of us at BUHS, and we will obviously begin that search immediately for a replacement for Mary. So I would ask the board to accept that resignation.
Move we accept the resignation of Mary Kaufman with regret.
Second.
Moving and seconded. All right, all in favor?
Thank you.
Great. All right, BAMS.
Everyone. Well, a few updates. Some of these things I updated you last time were taking place. I'll review a few of them. Doing a lot of hiring right now. We're down to 3 finalists for music. 2 of them have taught model lessons. We have 1 more this week and hope to make a decision there. Outstanding candidates. And then we have office clerk position, long-term sub for social studies. Still looking for a board certified behavior analyst with BCBA, and looking for world language teacher. So we're moving forward with those positions. See, last week, or recently, there was a retirement dinner at the American Legion, and I just wanted to point out that, the teachers and staff in the district are recognized for their years of service. And Ginny Rockwood, art teacher, 35 years teaching, so BAM's art teacher, so I wanted to congratulate her on that. And it was a nice evening. We are right in the middle of Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium testing. Kids tested last week with English, language arts, literacy, and this week is math. And the last week of May is one-day testing with science for 8th grade. The students did an outstanding job with the testing. Behaviorally, the technology worked out well. Very minimal issues. Compared to a few, like my first or second year here, where we transitioned to the online testing, there was so much anxiety about it, how it was going to work, whether we had enough connectivity. So all the improvements with the Wi-Fi system and technology worked really well. We had our Pops concert on the 16th. It was outstanding. It was Riley Goodemo's last concert here. Staff presented them some flowers. Kids performed. It was a really great concert. Chorus and band and jazz band. We also had a concert during the day for the students and staff at BAMS. A highlight for me, recently we had a career fair that Junie Pereira, he's our parent liaison, organized, and I think it was about 18 parents or community members and parents, a lot of them were parents, came to BAMS, and we set up a rotation with the 8th grade students where actually the students stayed in the rooms and the parents or the professionals from the community moved from classroom to classroom in pairs, and they had 15 minutes at each stop to kind of share what they do as a career with the students and answer questions. So, and the ones I was in, the professionals spent about 5 minutes talking about their career. The other person spent about 5 minutes, and they opened it up to questions. And kids were really engaged. It was really well organized, and I sat in on a few of them, and it was fascinating to hear what some of the careers are going on around here, and kids really seem to enjoy it. And you hope that it just sparks their interest in the Career Center. The one I was in, those fellows had gone to the Career Center. Corey, who was here presenting on for the Tenny Field, was one of the presenters, and Seth Bichette was another one, and they had both attended the Career Center back when they were in school. So it was just nice. They were trying to really make that connection of take advantage of it. And then a couple of future events coming up at the end of the month here. Museum night, which is something 7th grade social studies and interdisciplinary type work, but they make these presentations. They set them up in our multi-purpose room when we invite families to come, and they show off their projects. And then on the 31st, we have our dress-up dance. So you know the school year is getting close when we do that kind of towards the end of the year, and kids get quite a scene if you're on front of BAMS on dress-up night. A lot of tears and parents proud, and the kids all taking photos. So it's a fun night. That's the major things.
Usually a warm night.
It's usually a little warm.
Yeah.
Last year wasn't so bad.
When's museum night?
The 29th and 30th. There's one night, I think Leo was the 29th and Draco's the 30th. You're welcome to come on that evening, and either one of those evenings. So, any questions?
I would just appreciate it if all the administrators would email me their notes.
Yeah,
It's a big help.
I just sent you.
Yeah, I figured. Thank you very much.
Excellent. All right. Frank, do you have anything from central office?
I did have a handout I passed around from Lyle. So it's just a general information on enrollment and some of our subgroups of enrollment. Some of the trainings that Lyle has been engaged in, along with others, and then the upcoming dates. So in addition to some of those dates that Keith and Steve have just mentioned, there's other notable dates for some of our other schools in terms of graduation, and then the big June 25th Wyndham Southeast School District annual meeting. So that's it.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I just have a kind of a question. That the last category here is Vernon. And I was just wondering if there's any information at all about what possibly could or will transpire with Vernon. Is that a legal question?
From a governance point of view,
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're no longer part of the voting that is going to happen tomorrow. And so I was just wondering, you know, what does the future hold?
yeah, I haven't heard anything since that November 30th, and I think it got turned into like a memorandum in early December from Secretary of Education representing the board's position, which was essentially to say for the indefinite period of time, they will exist as an independent district and assigned to Wyndham Southeast Supervisor Union. I haven't heard anything other than at the last Supervisor Union Board meeting, the Vernon Board Chair raised the issue of requesting a waiver for representation on the Supervisor Union Board. And I believe that was submitted. I have not heard. I think we'll get an update
I haven't.
Thursday.
It's been granted.
Oh, it was
I got an
granted?
email from
Okay.
Carrie
Okay.
last week, something.
All right.
So that would be a reduction of members from them.
Yeah,
And
that's my
equal number from the new district.
That's right. That's my understanding. But I assume that's on the agenda for Thursday.
And would the WSESU still continue to exist if there is a different situation with Vernon?
The SU exists only because Vernon is a separate district, so if Vernon was not affiliated with this region, then I would assume then the SU would be dissolved. And, you know, that was...
What would that mean?
You're essentially special education services and the technology services, administrative, you know, finance, all of those programs in employment would be absorbed by the single district. So that would look a lot like Springfield School District, you know, Rutland School District, South Burlington. Those are all single districts with a superintendent and, you know, all of the services all within that one entity. And then you just totally eliminate the assessments and the separate budget and cash flows that go between the state, the supervisory union, and the district. That gets eliminated. It's a one-to-one, you know, relationship. The supervisory union is about an $18 million budget, and about 12 of that is special ed. So, you know, the vast majority is special ed. And so the cash flow comes from the state to this SU. The SU has the employment, and then the SU has to assess the member districts to fund the operation. So that extra bureaucracy is eliminated when you have a single district.
Thank you, Frank. I don't have anything as an administrative report as the board chair. So I'll just move us to unfinished business, which the only thing under unfinished business is Act 46 Transitional Board updates. And I'll just say that we had the Transitional Board had 2 meetings last week, Monday and Thursday. so Thursday was the last transitional board meeting. And we approved the budget to go to the new unified board, which is the merged budget of all of the individual budgets. And we also worked for a long time on 4 article of agreements to add or amend to the articles of agreement. We approved 3 of those to go to the new merged board, the unified district board, to add to the June 25th, or the voting that'll happen. And the 4th one, we couldn't come to an agreement on, and so we've asked, we're highly recommending that the unified district board puts that as one of their top priorities to figure out, and that's around governance and the governance structure. There's stuff, but I'll let Ann or Sean, who also sat on the transition board, to share anything they want to share too.
Well, I think the Articles Agreement question was taken away from June 25th.
It was taken with June. I started to say that, and then I stopped myself to say that there'll be a vote set later,
In July.
and probably in July, hopefully in July, soon in July, to do for the Australian ballot voting. And just to explain that is, we initially thought that, I think when we initially picked June 25th as a date to approve the budget, which has to be voted on from the floor in an annual meeting setup, we also thought that articles of agreement amendments or additions could also be voted that way, and then we found out they can't be voted that way, they have to be voted by Australian ballot. That being said, that meant that the polls in each one of the 4 towns needed to be open until 7 o'clock, and then we had a 7 o'clock start time for the annual meeting that was going to happen in this building related to the budget. The town clerks felt that was not something that they could manage, because you can't be in 2 places at once, it's not really possible. So, and because the articles of agreement can be voted on at any time, essentially, and as long by the voters, and can be amended or changed for the most part at any time, we felt like doing the budget first. So the June 25th meeting is still on for 7 o'clock for the electorate to vote on the merged budget, and that will be the only agenda item. And then we have encouraged the unified board to pick a date. Actually, a date was picked of June 9th for them to have of Australian ballot vote in the 4 towns on the Articles of Agreement amendment.
June 9th.
I mean July 9th, sorry, July 9th.
All amendments, or just the one that hasn't been?
The 3 that, because the transitional board makes a recommendation of what the wording should be. The unified board could keep that, could change that, could do whatever they want to do with that. They might add other ones they want to add to that. And to push the one that didn't have, to encourage them to do that. So that's the recommendation from the transitional board to the new unified board, to set a date, and the date was actually set in our motion. And I'll just say that I voted against that motion only because I didn't want to tie the clerk's hands, that I had recommended that the unified board, when picking a date for the Australian ballot, work with the town clerks in the 4 towns to pick a date that worked for all of them. Because it's July, there's vacations, there's other things going on. So, so the new unified board, when it gets seated, will have to make a decision about how they want to handle that. Sean?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I'm really glad that you brought that up. But the other thing that I'm remembering is that Lyle said that the amendments to the Articles of Agreement can actually be passed at any time. So
Yeah.
I think that probably the new board will wait until everything is coalesced, so there'll be one special
Meeting.
voting
Yeah.
situation by Australian ballot.
I would hope so,
I
but
would hope so.
I think that's it's up to them to make that decision, the 8 of them to make that decision
Right.
after
exactly.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
And is there anything that I'm missing that you wanted to add, or?
No, I think you guys covered it.
So the transitional board has finished its work with the election tomorrow, and I don't know if any, especially from the outlying towns, if you've heard this or not, the folks that are running, but I heard from the Brattleboro town clerk that we probably won't, because of commingling the ballots, nobody's going to really hear until Wednesday. just,
Oh, before our first meeting,
well, yeah, to hear who won.
yeah.
For the contested races,
Right.
because they have to commingle the ballots from all 4 towns. So the Brattleboro Town Clerk had let me know that we probably won't know the final outcome of the contested races until sometime on Wednesday morning. And then Wednesday evening, there's a scheduled meeting at 7 p.m. at Academy School to be the first, where those 8 unified board members will be sworn in, and then start their agenda that day, so, in 2 nights from now, so.
Well, thank you to those of you on the transitional board for putting that time.
Thank you. It was, I felt like, for me at least, I felt like it was interesting work, and I think that a lot of important things were said out loud and in public on the camera that needed to be said by a lot of different people that maybe haven't been heard from before, so I think that was a good step in the process for us all moving forward as a district and as a group of people that's trying to do what's in best interest of educating kids. So, anything else on Act 46 or Transitional Board? Any other questions related to that? And I'll just say out loud, especially for the folks at home and everything else, it's kind of been mentioned earlier related to some of the budgetary discussions and everything like that, but no, yes, other entities in the state have kind of done this, but no one's really done this before, and all of us are trying to figure it out as we go. So so even the people that are the experts, and we're talking to people that are experts, it's a lot of it's new ground. So the experts don't even know everything that needs to be known. So I'm gonna encourage everyone to have a little bit of patience with the process, because it's just it's a long process that we're all figuring out together. All right. Any other unfinished business or new business to come before us? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I want to open it with this discussion. I might make a motion, but I might not.
Okay.
It goes back to the June 12th cutoff and the formation of the BUHS Finance Board. Can a board empower a committee to make decisions, taking the unusual circumstances that we're in right now? Could we as a board authorize the BUHS 6 to make decisions on the 2018, 2019 close the book financial information without having to warn meetings? Would that be an improper motion, or would that be a possible solution to carrying on, having all 8 or 10 of us meet? Would that be improper procedure? Is that a possible motion? Can a board empower a committee to actually make the decisions as long as it's a quorum?
Well, and we've always, and Russ mentioned earlier about summer rules. I mean, this board has a history of empowering committees to do certain jobs in the form of summer rules, like BAM's committee doing hiring during the summer, TCC doing hiring at the high school during the summer, the WRCC doing hiring during the summer, those kinds of things. The finance committee making decisions related to financial situations during the summer. And normally, I would say that at our June 3rd meeting, we would be making the motion to put summer rules in effect, if this was any regular year like we've had forever. So I think that what you're getting to is sort of that. It feels like that to me, Frank. Does that make sense to you? So I think that it might be, but I would suggest before making the motion tonight, because Frank's going to be checking with folks related to the situation because of that I think that if that's definitely considered a proper thing to do and the appropriate thing to do, we could always do that on June 3rd before the June 12th meeting. At our next meeting, the motion you're suggesting could be made then. And I think that finding out whether or not it's appropriate and proper, given the newness of this entire situation for us, instead of us feeling locked into something that maybe we can't do after June 30th, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
I want to discuss it. But
yeah.
Again, just let them offer a solution
Yep.
as opposed to, you understand where I'm going?
Yeah, totally. I think in a lot of ways you're right. I just think that as long as we check to make sure that it's legal and appropriate.
Because you're going to have 2 boards running concurrently, and that's a brand new situation.
Yeah, it's
some rules are when the board that makes the decisions is meeting, and Now the board that's meeting is just for the end of this present financial year.
Right.
Well, we'll have two boards, the SU and the SD, and then so this would be a third board.
Right.
Concurrently.
Yeah.
We get them.
Oh, that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's gonna be making decisions like that too.
Well, the SU still.
SU Finance,
may-
right?
may-
You're talking about the SU Finance, right?
Well, the SU will continue.
The SU will
hiring
continue.
and making, doing the.
But it'll be
special ed
representatives of the new unified district and Vernon to make the SU.
Yeah.
And the preliminary, I'll do a full review, but I'm looking at some memorandums from Don Russo Savage from the Agency of Ed. And this is guidance, frequently asked questions for boards. And it's a guidance document that it says in a scenario where if the term of a board member of a merging district, so that's this district, this board right here, expires on a town meeting day on which the union is fully operational, then the board member should be elected to fill a vacant seat on the board of the merging district for a term that would last until the dissolution of the merging district. So that says to me that the dissolution, the legal dissolution of the merging district, I know is December of 2019. So that is saying fill the vacant seat until December 2019. So that's what that says. So we'll clarify this, but then your idea would be sufficient. That has where this board empowers a subcommittee to act on their behalf within a certain parameter.
Be so much more expedient.
Yeah, oh, no, totally. So, but you think by June 3rd, we could make that motion
Yeah.
and do that
Yeah,
once we found out for sure?
We'll
and
revisit.
double check things, yeah.
Make sure this actually applies to this situation. I believe that's where we'll end up.
That makes sense?
It does.
Go with that?
Okay, I'm just trying to offer out a solution.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that.
Situation.
Yeah, it's messy. All right. Anything else related to unfinished business or new business for tonight? All right. I'm just going to say, don't forget TCC. Don't leave. You're staying for a TCC meeting after this. Is there a motion for our regular meeting?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstentions? All right. We are adjourned.